In my last cooking video I actually used the lathe to peel a carrot. This had quite a good hit, and actually people were quite impressed with it, and one or two people have suggested why don't I try putting threads on a carrot and screw the carrot into a potato. Well, everybody knows you can't put threads into a potato, but I think a turnip could be quite possible. So I've got a parsnip here which I'm going to thread externally, and a turnip which I'm going to try and put an internal thread in and see if the two will screw together. The first thing I need to do is bore a centre hole through this so I can get it mounted nice and true on the mandrel. I've made a mandrel specifically for vegetables. But the first thing I need to do is get this drilled so it'll be a nice tight fit onto the mandrel. It's actually not running far off through there. It's not worth putting a clock gauge on until I actually get a nice smooth face to work to. I've got a 5.8mm drill here and the mandrel 6mm. That should be a good enough fit to give us to be able to use the mandrel to drive the parsnip properly. You want to make sure you get all the swarf removed. I'm just drilling this dry because that is quite a large amount of lubricant built into the parsnip. It's actually cutting very nicely. Right, that's all the way through. It's slightly off centre on the inside end of it, but I think it should be alright. Take the 3-jaw chuck off. What I have got is a 4-jaw chuck with a collet mounted into it, and ER32 collet body, so I can use that to hold the mandrel. That's not a tight fit as I'd like. What I really need is some method of driving this from that end. I should possibly drill that hole slightly smaller. That's interesting because the carrot actually had a better grip than that. It won't take a great lot to hold this, but I don't want it spinning when I'm cutting the threads, otherwise I will lose the thread. I think if I put some tape, some gaffer tape between the parsnip and the colour closer, that should possibly do it to give us a decent enough drive. You see, I want to make sure that it doesn't lose its. I don't want to lose the thread once I start screw cutting. I don't want any movement between the parsnip and the mandrel. That's pretty good. That's reasonable. Once again, I put a steady in the back of it just to make sure we get no flex on the mandrel. I'll not be taking any heavy cuts seem to get good results with a carbide tool on the turnip. Sorry, I seem to get good results with a carbide tool on the carrot. I don't see why it shouldn't work equally as well on the turnip. I think I'm going to run a fair bit faster. I'm aiming for probably a 30mm outside diameter on the thread. I'm going to use a nice big meaty thread. So what I'll probably do is part this end off, but I'm not going to use machine that down for the thread. That's 40mm there, so if I take it down to 30, that's going to give us plenty of meat for the thread. This is machining quite nicely. You can see the chips are breaking quite nicely. The yolk on these nasty stringy chips. That's the last thing you want. It's not so bad getting chips off potatoes, but you don't want chips off parsnips. Putting a really good finish on. That's 44mm. I think what I'll do, I'll make it 40mm, and that's a nice big size so I can get a big bar in to cut the internal thread in the turnip. So we're down to 44mm there, and you got 2mm off that, 2mm aside. .3. This will be our finished cut. Right, that's near enough, 40mm dead for me. What I need to do now is part this off, machine a recess there for the screw cutting tool to drop into. We're going to make a nice deep thread. I've slowed the lathe down a fair bit to part this off. Going in nice and gently. I'll use the parting tool to make a recess on this end for the screw cutting tool to drop into. That should be plenty. Only nose and nice chamfer just to break those edges. 45-degree tool should do that no problem. Quite a nice finish. I could polish that, but I think it'll be alright. This is the tool I'm going to use for the thread. I'm basically going to cut a square thread. I'm using what they call a swan neck tool. It's like a spring tool. If the tool decides to dig in, it actually springs down there and pulls the tool out of mesh. Because I'm not sure, just in case this does turn a little bit grubby and decides to dig in. I've decided to cut a 6mm pitch thread, a nice coarse thread. I've had to change some of the change wheels in the back of the lathe to be able to cut this thread. And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to feed the tool straight in and cut on both sides at once. I'm not going to bother with putting an angle on the compound slide, put it straight. A nice straightforward thread like this. So we'll set the gearbox up to cut the 6mm pitch. Right, I've got the lathe all set up. I've got it running at 45 RPM. I've got the change wheels and the gearbox set to cut the 6mm pitch. It gives you feed nuts and you can see the carriage is going the correct way. All we'll do now is turn the tool in until we're just touching. The tool is on centre height, by the way. Right, we'll just sort of see the sap coming off it there. I'll zero the cross side at that. I'll put a cut on. I'll turn the 1/2 million, which is 1/2 mil aside. We're going to engage the carriage on a full line on the thread dial indicator. I think I can engage it anywhere, but I don't want to make a mistake. Right, it's engaged there. Certainly appears to be cutting a thread. Right, so disengage it, zero the cross slide, wind it out, then back to the beginning. The chips are peeling off quite nicely. This will be the last cut. This one's I've cut the thread 5mm deep. I'll do one pass after this, just a spring pass, just to take any spring out of the tool. Right, this is this last cut. Spring cut, all this will do will polish the threads up. All it's doing basically is taking like a really light cut. You can see there is juice coming off it. I'm quite happy with that. Just cut the tape off. It's quite a decent thread. All you need to do now is make an equivalent nut out of turnip and try and get them to screw together.